Hi everyone, I hope you're doing okay. I hope this video finds you well. This is a very impromptu kind of video that I wanted to put out just because it's something that has been heavy on my heart for a while, and more so now that I'm going through specific things. And so I wanted to just kind of put my thoughts out there because I know I'm not the only one that goes through this or is feeling this way, and I just wanted to have, I guess, put some words down on a video, and at least if somebody sees it, they know they're not alone, or if somebody has something they can relate to, please throw it down in the comment section down below, just because we're human. Everybody's human, and I know that, again, these things that I'm about to talk about are not me specific. Everybody deals with it. So just to get right into it, so one of the things that I've been thinking about for a really long time has been just personality, right? Personality, really understanding what value means and, like, how we show value to ourselves. So I'm gonna focus on those two things for right now and how that relates to the outside world and people that you interact with, whether it be relationships, partnerships, or, like a job. And so starting with personality, because that is who we are, and it defines us as individuals and people. And personality is something that the individual could struggle with simply because they're hyper self-aware, if that makes sense. So to kind of bring that down a little bit, basically our personality is what defines us, right, as humans, because everybody, for lack of a better term, we're all humans, and everybody has specific traits that go along with just being a human and just living. But then there are these little characteristics that, for, again, lack of a better term, define us and who we are. And personalities can be very specific, very complex, layered. It could have many different versions and volumes for the individual, because the person that you are when you are first born, and then you become a toddler to a preteen to a teen to a young adult to an adult, etc., your personality is allowed to change and evolve as you learn, mature, encounter different experiences, etc. Being aware of your personality and perhaps the flaws that you have is also important, because you understand the things that maybe you do that could annoy or bother others. Being aware of it is okay, simply because it can help you kind of tweak little things and learn more about yourself. But at the same time, it's bad to fixate on it, especially the things that you cannot change. So that's kind of like, again, where I want to go. So just thinking through me, for instance, I am a very introverted extrovert, if that makes sense. Simply saying that, it's kind of like, if you know. If you identify with that, the second you hear it, you'll understand exactly what I'm trying to say. But for those of you that maybe do not have or identify with those characteristics, when I say that, I mean, I love my alone time. I value my peace. I love quiet. I want to be alone. But at the same time, when placed in a social setting, I'm a social butterfly. I talk to everybody. I can make friends or have a conversation with a wall, if you let me. The issues that I find is that both of those things together are contradicting, and that's how I feel about me and my personality and how I kind of navigate the world. And so just understanding that alone helps me make the decisions that I need to make. I've also been told that I have a strong personality, that I'm very direct, that perhaps, I say what's on my mind. It's not that I don't think about what I say before I say, because I am very aware, and I try and make sure that I do not hurt people's feelings or offend anybody, or, I'm not going to be a crazy individual and just blurt out the first thing that comes up to my mind. But I am one of those people that if something bothers me, I'm going to say it, even if it's an uncomfortable situation, simply because in my mind, if it's not addressed, it's going to happen again and again and again and again and again. And so in order to, stop future disappointment, we need to talk about it. And so, again, a lot of these characteristics, while they resonate with some people, not with everybody, and some people will find that as nagging, annoying, or being a victim, or blah, blah. You can be gaslit into 1,000 different ways of how that kind of works. And again, if any of these things that I'm saying you identify with, then we're probably in the same boat, right? And so there's all of that happening. I've also learned, right, that people tend to apologize for the things that they don't want done to them. So for instance, I constantly apologize when I interrupt somebody simply because I hate it when it's done to me, and I am very aware over the fact that I do it often. And that's something that I'm definitely battling with because I have a lot to say. And I've learned during this time and this season in my life that speaking less is important. Not oversharing or giving too many details to people, especially new people, is not necessary. It's not needed. You don't have to give context. You don't have to make sure people understand where you're coming from, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is you and your peace. Again, it sounds a little crazy and it's a little all over the place, and I can definitely go in more into this at another time. But again, if you know, you know. If it resonates with you, it resonates with you. And so being hyper aware when you have these flaws or these flaws that you deem on yourself, that you put on yourself, it can be very hard, because in every situation then you find yourself overthinking about how you reacted, how you treated that person, or how they could have treated you better. And like, maybe you didn't say the things you wanted to say, or maybe you did, or maybe you said too much, or maybe you said too little. Like, there's always these little things that we need to navigate. And the whole point of me saying this is normal. It's so normal. There is this psychology that we are kind of indoctrinated with since we're young, that by the time we hit 20, 30, 35, etc., we should have things figured out. And that's just not true. That is one of the biggest lies and myths that I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm about to be 36 and I'm still struggling with a lot of different things. Being a mother, a wife, a career woman, and also in all of that, finding time for myself. I have found it that the older I get, instead of necessarily things making more sense, or the older I get, instead of things falling into place, they make more sense. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Things will only fall into place if you're actively working towards that goal. However, as you get older, life experiences, you get more mature and all of those things, yes, things start making more sense. But without the action, it doesn't matter how much sense it makes unless you apply both things together. Again, a little all over the place. Sorry if it doesn't make sense, but if you get it, you get it. If you know, you know. And that's part one of kind of what I wanted to say. The second part of this conversation would be value, right? How do we value ourselves? We hear this all the time, right? You need to value yourself. You need to take care of yourself. You need to put yourself first. You need to do this. You need to do that. And this value situation can be applied in your personal relationships, your relationships with friends and other people, employees, and even your job, or whatever it is that you're putting your time and energy into. So one of the things that I've learned during this time, because that's another thing that I've gleaned, is that a lot of these things we've been told and taught and we've seen, and it could be a very simple solution to the issue or the thing that is holding you back or giving you, pause or making you think. But it's so simple, right? We know the answers to 95% of anything and everything that we go through. The issue stands with, is your mind ready to process and abide by the thing that you know you should do, or the thing that you know isn't serving you, or the thing that you know is toxic for you? So again, all of our answers are right in front of us. Sometimes what we need to do is talk to somebody, or maybe pray, or both, right? In order to ask for the ability and the discernment to be able to absorb, right? And to understand the things that are right in front of us. Because again, none of this is groundbreaking. So when we're talking about value and how we value ourselves in any one of those situations that I mentioned earlier, value is something that nobody else can give. You have to give it to yourself. And again, while this is something that sounds so easy, no brainer, like duh, unless your mind is ready to process and take that in, there's no amount of life experience or maturity that is going to help that message penetrate, if that makes sense. So let me make this a little more in tune and give you an example. So let's say you're at a job or you're in a relationship, right? Because both can be true for both situations. So let's say you're at a job or you're in a relationship and you give this job or this relationship your all, right? You put your best foot forward, you go above and beyond simply because it goes with your personality. It's a personality characteristic trait that you have. You're also very, you have a big ego in a good way, right? You're very prideful of what you do. And so you're going to give everything that you do 110%. So while you're doing this, right, that job or that individual is not asking you to do that. It's kind of more of an expectation, right? And even that expectation is met with like, well, there's layers. Like, this is good, this is even better, this is amazing, and this is the person going above and beyond. And so your job or your relationship is really just asking you to do your best, right? The level that you give them depends on you. And so sometimes whenever we're giving this job or this relationship 110%, and that job or that relationship is not recognizing your efforts, whether it be monetarily or with more responsibility, a title, or like, hey, even an acknowledgement of like, thank you, or like words of affirmation, whatever the case may be, you automatically feel like, oh, such and such doesn't value me, such and such company or such and such individual doesn't value me. And that's where we always fall short, because at the end of the day, we have to give value to ourselves. And unless we give ourselves the value, nobody else is going to give it to us, right? So again, just kind of making this more personal for me. Right now, I'm going through a situation at work, right, where I give my all to everything that I do, but it's not necessarily translating in the way that I would like it to, meaning more responsibility, better pay, things of that nature. And it's finally dawned on me that until I value myself, this company won't value me. And sometimes valuing yourself can also look in the way of closing that door and walking away from it, because sometimes things are seasons in our life and they're not meant to be there forever or permanently. And the same thing can be said for relationships or jobs. Sometimes the fact that a company or a job or an individual is not valuing you and who you are, that just means you need to look into yourself and see why you're limiting yourself. And limiting ourselves from moving on from a job, for instance, could be fear of the unknown, fear of what could happen, or not necessarily wanting to start over. And again, all of these things could be said for relationships, because at the end of the day, a job is a relationship. And so all of these things, right, kind of filter into the same pot. And it's kind of like, if you're not your advocate or your best advocate, nobody's going to do it for you. And so you can't expect things to change unless you start setting standards for yourself and you start setting like roadblocks for things that you will no longer accept. And that could also come in form of telling your boss, like, hey, no, like, I can't stay late, or no, I'm not going to do said function that doesn't fall under my job description. Because again, we can't be crazy, right? If you are being paid for something, a certain set of responsibilities, as a team player, you always want to show up, be a collaborator, help out, give input, even if it's not your responsibility, just to show that you are a team player, you can be a leader, etc. But sometimes showing your self-value can also come in telling your boss or your manager or whatever, sorry, can't do that. It's not part of my job description, because you can only take so much. And it's okay sometimes to be what they would call petty. Because again, in this day and age, people love to use words and change the meaning of it to gaslight you into feeling bad about something. So, I know this is a lot. I know I kind of talked in circles. Again, it's one of those situations, if you know, you kind of need to be going through something similar or have some characteristic traits like mine, like I mentioned, in order to understand. But I know that somebody out there is going to get it, because again, this has been on my heart and I wanted to put some words on a video, because I know I'm not the only one that's feeling this or going through this, especially around this time. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes. And please feel free, if you have any encouraging words or something similar to share, please share it down in the comment section below. I read all the comments, and I definitely, would love to have or start some kind of dialogue with some of you guys surrounding this topic. With that being said, please take care, and we'll talk soon. Bye.